Hi everyone, today we are going to talk about rapid urbanization and mental health in developing countries. This quote reflects a significant shift from traditional rural lifestyles to urban living, signifying profound changes in how people organize and inhabit their environments. It was in 2008 that the United Nations made a historic announcement that for the first time in history, we lived in a majority urban world. Urbanization, characterized by the migration of populations from rural to urban areas, is one of the main health-relevant changes humanity is facing in our time and will be facing in the coming decades. According to the Handbook of Statistics 2022, 57% of the global population lives in urban areas currently. Historically, urbanization was often associated with industrialization and occurred predominantly in developed countries. However, by the mid-20th century, developing countries began experiencing significant urbanization. They have unique and distinct urbanization patterns compared to developed countries. First, some, like those in sub-Saharan Africa, undergo urbanization at lower income levels. For instance, in 2010, with a GDP per capita of $1,481, their urban population exceeded 40%, contrasting with Western Europe's per capita level in 1900, which was at least twice as high. Second, they are urbanizing at a particularly rapid pace. The urbanization rate in developing countries experienced a historical peak in the 1950s at 2.8%, followed by fluctuations between 2% and 2.6% until the recent decade. Finally, the scope for urbanization in developing countries is also very large. While both developed and developing countries have seen urban population growth since the 1950s, the magnitude differs significantly. Developed countries added around 512 million urban population from 1950 to 2010, while developing countries saw a more than fourfold increase, adding about 2.3 billion. Projections suggest developing countries will add an additional 2 billion to their urban populations by 2050. Urbanization brings development and opportunities, yet inadequate infrastructure and insufficient economic growth often lead to challenges such as overcrowding and pollution with rapid urbanization in developing countries. This urban growth is closely linked to a rise in mental health challenges, with mood disorders and anxiety showing higher prevalence in urban settings. As urbanization increases, identifying the mental health challenges in these countries is critical to planning appropriate public health interventions. Therefore, we aim to investigate the following question. How does rapid urbanization in developing countries on a global scale impact people's mental health? Our research has found that it affects mental health through three major pathways. First, let's turn our attention to the environmental pathway. In urban areas, daily life often involves a lengthy commute and constant exposure to high-frequency noises. This situation is exacerbated in developing countries, where rapid urbanization is expected to drive population growth, leading to increased emissions and traffic congestion. The United Nations Environment Programme predicts that half of the world's population growth over the next 30 years will occur in Africa, potentially increasing car use and emissions in Africa cities. Widespread increases in motor vehicle use will cause traffic congestion because the transportation system is already being used near full capacity or beyond its design capacity. Road traffic plays a dominant role in the generation of environmental noise. A study of road traffic noise pollution in Karachi found that road traffic peaks in Karachi were very high. Maximum peak noise levels at selected locations exceeded 100 dB, which is very close to the 110 dB level at which hearing damage can occur. This noise exposure causes psychological stress, including annoyance and sleep disturbance. Annoyance is a psychological response to noise that leads to negative emotions, including anger, frustration, anxiety, and depression. Nighttime traffic noise can adversely affect sleep patterns and lead to fatigue. Air pollution, another stressor in urban settings, is characterized by pollutants such as particulate matter, nitrogen dioxide, and sulfur dioxide. This pollution has been linked to an increased prevalence of psychiatric disorders associated with psychological stress. China, as a case in point, faces significant urban environmental degradation due to high levels of air pollution from rapid urbanization and heavy reliance on coal as an energy source. The World Bank highlights the severity of air pollution in Chinese cities, like many other developing countries and India in particular. surpassing levels observed in most US and European cities.
Rapid urbanization in developing countries also poses a growing threat to green spaces. Vital for mental well-being, studies consistently emphasize urban green space's vital role in promoting outdoor activities and fostering social cohesion, which is correlated with lower stress, reduced psychiatric morbidity, and fewer symptoms of depression and anxiety, aligned with the stress reduction theory. This is found to underscore the potential of nature landscapes to evoke positive emotions and offer a restorative effect. Rapidly urbanizing economic development has prompted large population movements, increasing demand for urban land. For example, the South Asian country of Bangladesh has experienced high levels of migration in recent years as a result of economic development. High population densities and limited urban land has put pressure on urban dwellers. At the same time, public planning and policies in most developing countries prioritize infrastructure development, with little recognition of the value of green space. This has resulted in an unbalanced pattern of development between green space and residential areas in urban areas. The case of Accra, Ghana illustrates this trend with the significant land use changes from 1991 to 2018. The large vegetation shows a notable decline while the built-up area for residential and commercial use continues to expand.
Next, let's focus on the economic pathway. In developing countries experiencing rapid urbanization, economic transformation is intertwined with mental health outcomes. While urbanization contributes to long-term productivity growth, it also leads to a concentrated urbanization of poverty, affecting nearly 1.2 billion people living on $1.25 a day. Low socioeconomic status emerges as a significant risk for urban mental health, increasing susceptibility to major depression, substance abuse, and personality disorders. Poverty is a reflection of low socioeconomic status. First, the prevalence of slums, characterized by overcrowded housing, inadequate amenities, and eviction threats, exemplifies urban poverty, acting as stressors contributing to psychological distress. In addition, rapid urbanization intensifies unemployment and underemployment, creating economic stress due to an oversupply of labor. Migration driven by economic prospects results in underemployment, fostering a cycle of unemployment and precarious work conditions that negatively impact mental health, contributing to depression. Finally, inadequate expansion of public services and amenities compounds infrastructure challenges, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and mental disorders in urban areas. Insufficient government allocation to mental health, as seen in India's meager 0.06% of its health budget in 2011, exacerbates these challenges. Extractive institutions further marginalize the urban poor within governmental frameworks, neglecting their urgent mental health needs in the broader societal context.
Finally, the social environment holds a crucial role, especially social capital, defined as active connections among individuals involving trust, loyalty, and commonalities. Acting as a protective buffer against mental illness stressors, it fosters community support networks, contributing to enhanced mental health outcomes. However, rapid urbanization is damaging social capital. First, the global quest for sustainable urban development encourages high-density cities, especially in developing countries like Africa and Asia. Moreover, cities are often described as spaces filled with strangers. The high population density resulting from rapid urbanization increases the frequency of contact with strangers. Thus, primary intimate ties are usually replaced by more distant secondary ties. Finally, the constant inflow and outflow of people in cities hamper the formation of stable social ties, affecting the ability of communities to maintain social ties and foster a sense of collective well-being. In addition, the mixing of diverse populations, urban natives, and rural migrants in shared urban spaces does not foster strong social ties, further weakening social networks and trust between individuals.
In conclusion, our research identifies three key pathways through which rapid urbanization in developing countries affects mental health. Environmental pathways include increased exposure to air and noise pollution and a decline in green space. Economic pathways are characterized by the urbanization of poverty, with housing vulnerability, unemployment, and inadequate public services and infrastructure. Social pathways highlight a decline in social capital due to factors such as high population density, frequent interactions with strangers, and migratory mobility, leading to the erosion of supportive social networks. Our comprehensive analysis recognized the nuanced nature of these pathways, which can be broken into stressors that act as precursors to mental health problems and protective factors that, when present, can mitigate the mental distress induced by urbanization.